Have you ever thought, there's got to be a better and simpler way to learn organizational strategies? 5 Minutes Learning has a global and diverse collection of case studies to help management students. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay updated with our upcoming and interesting case studies. Let's take a trip down Disney memory lane to the mid-2000s, when big changes were happening at the House of Mouse. Imagine this. It's November 2005, and the Walt Disney Company is holding its breath. The reason? The release of Chicken Little is Disney's second foray into the world of computer-generated, CG, animated films. For Robert Iger, who had just taken the reins as Disney's new CEO, the success of this movie was crucial. Why? Because Disney was in the midst of a massive animation evolution. You see, traditional hand-drawn animation, the kind that brought classics like The Lion King to life, was facing stiff competition from this newfangled CG technology. And if Disney wanted to stay in the animation game, they needed to ace this transition. But here's the kicker. A significant chunk of Disney's recent animated hits, including Toy Story and Finding Nemo, came from a little animation studio called Pixar. Pixar wasn't exactly a Disney subsidiary. They had a co-production agreement, a 5-picture deal that would wrap up after Cars hit the screens in 2006. To make matters even more interesting, negotiations for renewing this contract fell apart back in 2004. Steve Jobs, the big cheese at Pixar, and Disney's then CEO, Michael Eisner, couldn't see eye to eye, and things got a bit messy. But Robert Iger, Disney's new sheriff, was determined to fix this. He'd recently made a deal with Jobs to sell ABC-produced TV shows through iTunes, so he knew there was common ground to be found. The question on everyone's mind was, what would this new deal between Disney and Pixar look like? Should Disney go all in and buy Pixar outright? The answer to that question would shape the future of animation and entertainment, and it was in the hands of Robert Iger and the creative minds at Disney. Our story kicks off in the era of Michael Eisner, the man at the helm of Disney. Eisner had struck a distribution deal with Steve Jobs, and it was a game-changer. Toy Story had become a sensation, but here's the rub: Pixar was fiercely independent. They financed their own films and didn't let Disney peek behind the curtain until the movie was done. Eisner, however, was a different kind of leader. He was a hands-on manager, the kind who wanted to be in on every step of the filmmaking process. Imagine him as a micromanager extraordinaire. This clashed with Pixar's independent spirit. Disney had an interesting system in place. They had a strategic planning unit that basically kept an eye on Disney's financial divisions. It encouraged conflict by pitting division managers against the strategic planning department. In Eisner's world, conflict was the path to brilliance. Put smart people in a room and let them duke it out, the best ideas will pop out, he believed. But this constant battling took a toll. Between 1994 and 2000, a whopping 75 high-level executives decided to jump ship. As one of them put it, it's not as fun a place as it used to be. The creative side doesn't rule anymore. Imagine being an artist at Pixar, located in Northern California. You've got your creative juices flowing, making fantastic movies, and then you have to deal with Eisner's antics. When Pixar showed their second film, Finding Nemo, he wasn't thrilled. He wrote a memo to his staff, essentially saying, "It's okay, but not as good as their previous films." Classic Eisner. But here's the twist: in his battle to control Pixar, Eisner leaked that memo to the Los Angeles Times. This escalated the feud. Jobs fired back, saying that Disney's recent animated films were embarrassing duds. The tension simmered even after Finding Nemo became a smash hit. Eisner argued that Disney didn't really need Pixar anymore. They had the rights to make sequels to Toy Story and all of Pixar's films. For Pixar's creative minds, this was the last straw. John Lasseter and Ed Catmull, the brains behind Pixar, were not about to let Disney take away their children. They decided to explore distribution deals with other studios. And there you have it, the stage was set for a battle of epic proportions. Two visionary leaders, Eisner and Jobs, with vastly different visions for the future of animation, were ready to go head-to-head in a clash that would redefine the creative economy. Disney, the animation giant, was facing a crisis. Animation had been its crown jewel for decades, but lately, it has lost its sparkle. Michael Eisner, the CEO at the time, seemed to underestimate the severity of the problem. It was a challenging era, and Disney needed a game-changer. Enter Robert Iger, Disney's COO, a man with a different perspective. He understood that Disney's animation division was in deep waters. He realized this during a parade at Hong Kong Disneyland in 2005. As he watched, he noticed something unsettling. The only characters created in the past decade were from Pixar. A light bulb went off in his head. He didn't discuss it with Eisner, but it was a subtle indictment of his tenure. Soon after, Eisner stepped down as CEO, and Iger assumed the role. He immediately went to work on repairing Disney's relationship with Pixar, understanding the dire consequences if they lost Pixar's distribution. 45% of Disney's film income came from Pixar movies, and mothers trusted the Pixar name more than Disney's. Iger knew he had to act swiftly. He went back to Disney's headquarters and conducted a financial analysis. Shockingly, it revealed that Disney had lost money on animation over the past decade. He presented these findings to Disney's board, who were surprised they hadn't been informed earlier. Iger made it clear that animation was the cornerstone of Disney's success. A hit animated film created ripples that touched every part of the business. Iger presented the board with three options: stick with the current animation management, which he believed wouldn't work, find new management, but he didn't have a candidate in mind, or buy Pixar. He wasn't even sure if Pixar was for sale, and if it was, the price tag would be astronomical. Nevertheless, the board authorized him to explore a deal. Here's where empathy and cultural competence come into play. Iger reached out to Steve Jobs, Pixar's head honcho. Jobs was charmed by Iger's forthrightness. Iger didn't beat around the bush. He laid his cards on the table, admitting Disney needed Pixar desperately. This direct approach struck a chord with Jobs, who believed in open, honest negotiations. Jobs then spoke to Pixar's creative minds, John Lasseter and Ed Catmull, on Disney's behalf. He invited them over to his house to discuss the potential partnership. He was impressed by Iger's straightforward approach, contrasting it with Eisner's drama-filled Disney. Jobs agreed to introduce Lasseter and Catmull to Disney's board. They met in secret, outlining their vision for reviving Disney Animation Studios. With the artists won over, Jobs proposed that Disney acquire Pixar for $7.4 billion in stock. It was a risky move, but it paid off. Disney's board approved the acquisition, setting the stage for a new era of Disney animation. Thanks to Iger's strategic thinking, empathy, and cultural competence, Disney was on the path to reclaiming its animation kingdom. This captivating chapter in Disney's history teaches us the power of recognizing the right mix of talents in leadership and the importance of bridging cultural gaps in business negotiations. Imagine a boardroom showdown featuring two of Disney's heavyweights, Michael Eisner and Robert Iger, each vying for their vision of Disney's future. Eisner, at that time the largest individual Disney shareholder, owning 1.7% of the company's stock, caught wind of a secret meeting between Iger and the Pixar folks. The agenda? Discussing the potential merger of Disney and Pixar. Eisner, a staunch opponent of this merger, wasn't about to let it happen. He dialed Iger, expressing his concerns about the hefty price tag attached to this deal. Eisner firmly believed that Disney could fix its animation woes without external help. However, Iger, in no mood for a debate, questioned Eisner's authority to make such claims when Eisner himself hadn't managed to address the animation slump during his tenure. Eisner wasn't backing down. He wanted to attend a Walt Disney Company board meeting, despite no longer being a member or an officer. Iger resisted but was eventually persuaded by none other than Warren Buffett and George Mitchell, influential shareholders. They convinced Iger to allow Eisner to state his case. Eisner presented his argument, focusing on Disney's existing 85% share of Pixar's previous films. He pointed out that Disney held the rights to make sequels and exploit the characters from these movies. According to Eisner, the remaining 15% of Pixar was the only prize in the acquisition. He predicted Pixar's winning streak wouldn't last, citing the history of directors and producers who experienced a string of hits followed by failure. After Eisner left the room, it was Iger's turn to counter the argument. He highlighted the adaptability and intellectual curiosity of Disney's existing animation team. They had embraced the technology developed by Pixar and were exploring new and exciting film subjects beyond Disney's traditional scope. This team displayed the same curiosity as Pixar's artist-scientists. In the end, the Disney board approved the acquisition, following Iger's compelling rebuttal of Eisner's points. This pivotal decision would reshape Disney's animation future and lead to some of the most beloved animated films in history. This clash of titans in the boardroom illustrates the importance of robust arguments and strategic thinking in corporate decision-making. It also showcases how leadership changes can dramatically impact a company's direction. The acquisition of Pixar was a turning point in Disney's history, ultimately leading to the renaissance of Disney animation. Thank you so much for listening to this video. Do not forget to subscribe this YouTube channel for receiving updates about my upcoming case study videos.